Hey, we're so glad that you have joined us today online, and today's going to be a little bit different. I've got some of our team up here, and we're going to talk about BLESS. You might remember the BLESS series that we did in the fall. This was the acronym that was our strategy for reaching out to people who are far from God in our lives. And if you haven't seen that series, I encourage you, go back and watch or listen to that, because that's going to be helpful to you going forward. We're going to talk a lot about BLESS as a church as we're moving forward and really trying to dig deep on reaching people far from God in our lives, right? Not as a program, but as individual followers of Jesus. So today I've invited some of our team up here, and we're going to talk about this and what we have been doing in the months since our last discussion of that. Before we get started, I want you to introduce yourselves, and I want you to share a fun fact that people might not know about you. Brittany?
Sure. I'm Brittany. I serve as the online campus director here at Southview, and my fun fact is that I love to tap dance.
I'm Zach Kaufman. I'm the student ministry director here, and my fun fact is that my car has been to every state on the East Coast.
Oh.
Many of them twice.
Cool. I'm Andy, and I'm the kids ministry director, and my fun fact is I'm very good with a bow and arrow.
There you go.
There you go.
And I'm William, and I'm a big Dallas Cowboys fan.
Is that fun?
Is that fun?
That's a fun fact. I think
year.
that's fantastic. It was fun up until last Sunday, but really, I'm holding out hope. You know, there's still a chance. There's always a chance. Every year, there's a chance.
Out of all the facts. All right.
I feel like that one might be a known fact.
Maybe. Not everybody. I thought I would share. So as we're talking about BLESS, we talked about this in the fall, right? And some of you got to share about what you had been doing implementing this in your lives. So it's been a few months. So as you have continued doing that, I want to ask you, like, what have you had some further thoughts on BLESS? And how have you seen this come into play as a part of your life these last few months?
So I know for me, when we first went through the book, it felt very like, okay, first I'm going to do step 1, and then I'm going to do step 2, and then I'm going to do step 3. And it felt very programmed to me. And I think over the months, kind of releasing that program and feeling it more like, okay, I'm going to live this out. I'm going to just do it organically. And as I pray about it and feel it, I'm going to let that happen and flow. And by letting it go and not being a program, that's helped a lot to just be comfortable with doing the steps.
I love that.
I know for me, it started out that I was very encouraged how many things I was already doing, because it makes it so simple. Like, eating already happens, and the listening, if you're having conversations, I'm seeing people on a regular basis, a lot of those things are already in place, and it just helped me, number one, be aware of what I was already doing well, and number two, be more intentional within those things and what I was adding there. So that's what I loved about it. And I love this review now that we've had time to implement it. Coming from a background as a personal trainer, like, that's so important to look at your progress where you've come through. So I want to shout that out too.
That's good.
For those of you that have no idea what we're talking about, go back to southview.org/sermons and look up the BLESS series, or Google the book. I highly recommend BLESS. It's changed my life. I'm one to overcomplicate and overthink everything. Like, if I'm going to do a Bible study, I need the highlighters and the colored pencils, and like, I just overcomplicate it.
That's okay.
Overcomplicated.
I overcomplicate it way too much to the point where I get overwhelmed and I'm like, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But BLESS had made living like Jesus so simple, and I would recommend it to anyone, whether you're brand new to faith or you've been in church for a really long time. I think it makes living like Jesus really easy, and it will really honestly change your relationships with the people around you.
Mm-hmm. You know, I heard a really smart person say recently that, like, reaching out to people, should be more about them than about us. Remember that?
Yeah, really good. Really good.
Somebody said that just recently. I had to write it down because it was so good. I love that, because that's exactly living like Jesus. That's exactly what it is. Jesus was not like, oh, so let me tell you about me. It was about other people.
Yeah.
It was about reaching out to them where they were. The first part of BLESS, the first step, was beginning with prayer. So I'm curious, like, how have you implemented prayer specifically around people far from God, into your daily life?
So you want to go?
Sure. Prayer has been my favorite part of Bless. It's really changed the way I look at people. It's changed the way I pay attention to people. One story that I can think of right now is I was driving on 66, and for those of you that don't know me, I have an hour-plus long commute on 66, so I have a lot of time to pray. And there was one specific area after listening to the prayer sermon that you did on Bless, and I was praying for a really close friend of mine that is not a follower of Christ. And then later that week, I was driving on 66 with her in that exact spot, and out of nowhere, she brought up my relationship with Jesus and wanted to know more. And I honestly think it's because I took the time to pray for her.
God
I really
moment
do.
right there.
Yeah, amazing.
Love that.
I know for me, it made things so much more intentional that it's so easy to breeze through that, especially because, like, when I pray, it's typically in the morning before I get moving and going about my day. And it's easy to just, like, include my friends and my family in general. But I know I've really liked the one handout you had that it had it set up of, like, your neighbors, your coworkers, all these people you interact with, that I remember looking at that and being like, oh, like in a week, it is surprising how many people I interact with and I know their name, and that's not even counting the random people at the grocery store or the gas station or all those other places you get. So it made me so much more, number one, aware of that, and then number two, intentional of being able to think of those specific people that I'm interacting with and able to have any kind of influence, interaction with. So I love that, just intentionality of including people by name and who I was praying for. And the things that, as I went forward with some of the listening things, the things they'd bring up as prayer requests as well, of just including them by name and intentionally. And just thinking about that as I went about life too, as I was interacting with all these people around it. It's easy to go by and they're just generic faces and you move on to the next thing, the next task.
That's good. It's one of my favorite words, intentional, right? Good things don't happen accidentally. You don't wake up one day and realize, oh, hey, I'm implementing all of Bless. I don't know how that happened. Being intentional. I love that.
And I think for me, I know a lot of us carry this around the phone, and with just the world that we're in and how busy as moms that we are, I do a lot of my connecting over texting. And so it's just check-ins. It's like, hey, how's it going today? What's up? And by doing that, a lot of what comes out, is, oh man, this has happened, or that's happened, or my dad, insert issue here. And recently, two of my friends who were non-believers, one was driving back she happened to be in Tennessee. She was coming back from Texas driving. And the other one had a friend who got stuck with no power in the snow. And so they were cold. They needed help. And I said, you know what, let's pray. And I think it's so easy to say, hey, I'll pray for you. Yeah. And then you just move on with your day. And you might think about him or whatever. But I actually text out, Dear Heavenly Father, and I always ask the person's name. And I say, please bless, insert name, protect them, keep them safe. And I actually write the prayer out and hit send. And I think that, although maybe they're not believers, it says, hey, look, I love you enough to take a minute to really think about my words that I'm going to say, and I'm sending this up.
I had a friend years ago who would do that.
Yeah?
He would email prayers that he was praying for you, like to different people.
Yeah.
And whenever I would get one of those, I was always touched by that. Because it's not just, I'll pray for you.
Yeah.
No, it's like, here's the prayer.
I'm
I'm praying
it.
for you.
Yeah,
listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, here it is. It was so meaningful.
Yeah.
So I love that. To take it to a different level now. Here, I'm just going to text it. That's
And
great.
they're short,
Yeah.
a couple of sentences. And like the second one, I was like, I'm here again. I'm back.
Great. The second part of Bless is listening, right? And learning to listen well to other people. Truly hearing somebody is one of the best ways that we can bless them. I'm curious, how have you been intentional about that part of Bless?
I feel like life has been super busy, and I think that's relatable for everybody. It's like now that things have opened back up, we went from being stuck at home to having packed calendars. It's really easy to be like, oh, hey, how are you? And for you to respond, and for me to not hear a word you're saying. I'm like already thinking about going on to the next thing. So Bless has taught me to be really intentional about my conversations with people. It's not just like, hey, how are you? I'm good. Okay, let's move on. It's like, no, really, how are you? Like, let's chat. I want to get deeper into my conversations and really learn more about you and what's going on in your life. And then it goes back to prayer, so I can pray for you and build closer relationships, and that way we can like build trust and a true connection. Listening has been something I'm not very good at, so being intentional with it through Bless has helped me a lot.
That's good.
Listening was one of my favorite ones because it's something I'm good at. I have a background being a teacher. I've been a personal trainer, and it's something I do very often, but it helped me, again, be more intentional about the listening. That very similar to what you were saying in terms of schedule, I had to make space for it because so many times I was running into people, and whether I'd ask them about their day or whatever it was, and they're like, oh, I'm not doing too well. And I just hated that feeling of like, oh, well, I gotta go, but like I would love to talk about this. So I've had to be intentional about not just packing my schedule, going from here to there, doing this and then this, and leaving space to interact with my coworkers, with all the different places I've been. But that's the one I've tried to emphasize it the most, that I'm seeing every day. And I just don't want to be in that relationship where it's just like, hey, goodbye, all right, like maybe I'll see you later this afternoon. And it's very surfacey and not, you don't have that space for people to not be perfect. Yeah. And that's what is so great about listening, that you're able to have that empathy for other people that are struggling, going through things. And it's amazing how much that comes up, that both myself and other people that I interact with, like, you don't know the struggles of everyone else that's going on. So when you create that space, and when I've created that space to listen, it's such a deeper connection with the people that I am interacting with.
And feeling heard can change someone's life. Like just that moment of someone hearing you say like something you've been struggling with, it can lift a weight off your shoulders. So for you or for me or for any of us to take the opportunity to truly listen can be the opportunity to let that person be set free from whatever is like binding them down.
Absolutely. So often I think our relationships can become transactional.
Yeah.
Like they fall down to that point where it's like, okay, I need this. Okay, you need this. All right, thanks, bye.
And I feel that with my kids. Honestly, I really do. And like with an adult, I find listening is very easy. I give them that time and that respect. And I feel like with my kids, sometimes it gets really transactional, like brush your teeth, get your jammies on, just do it and hurry up.
Yeah.
And so for me, the listening part actually was hard. Like it was easy for you, but it's hard for me with my kids to take time to stop, actually hear how they're feeling, what happened, why are they acting the way that they're acting. So I'm trying to hone in on that with my kids.
That's good. Yeah. So what you're saying is that we don't just use bless with strangers.
Heck no.
We actually use it with people that we know well.
Yes.
Wow. Even with family.
Oh, dare we?
I know, right? Though, I think it's really easy to relegate this to people that we
The
don't know.
unknown, yeah.
To the strangers, to the people, the acquaintances, and not bring it home. But don't you want the people who know you best, like, to respect you the most? Don't you want to know more about them and their relationship with their Heavenly Father? Like, don't you want that relationship to be primary for them?
Yeah.
What a great tool to get there.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question. After implementing bless, in what ways have you seen God work in you and through you to love those around you?
Very similar to what you were saying after my last comment, of just the connection with people and the deeper connection once, like, that, whether it's me or them, of that weight being lifted off, of sharing your story, what's going on, of just being genuine. I love that closeness of the people that, like I was saying earlier about being intentionally in contact with, praying for, all of those kind of things. Like, I've really appreciated that, and I've seen it so clearly. For those that don't know, I was out the whole month of December, both being sick and traveling there, and then coming back and just seeing all the people that are like, oh, I miss seeing you. Like, it was just, I loved feeling that deeper connection, which when we started, it was coming out of the pandemic, kind of like you were saying earlier, where we hadn't had that personal interaction nearly as much. And to see how much it's grown in those months and really have that emphasized by me being gone and coming back to it, loved seeing that, just that closeness, that connection, and knowing people so much better. It's really made a difference on relationships for me, if you can't tell from every one of my responses.
That's awesome.
I think for me, it's been, I was helping a friend through a really difficult time. She lost her mom recently before Christmas. And I think that whole situation could have gone very differently. And I still would have been supportive, still would have been there for her. But I think it would have looked really different. And going through Bless, or keeping at least the tools and the steps of Bless in the back of my heart, it made me feel a lot more comfortable in a very, what could be awkward and difficult time in her life. And so I hope, instead of making it awkward with her, by doing the Bless, I hope that it brought peace. And I think it did, just with our interactions and our back and forth. And a lot of it was text, because she was in Texas. I just wanted her to know on a different level that, like, I really was there for her no matter what. And she could be grumpy, she could be miserable, she could shout at me, she could be crying, she could be happy, all of it. And it would be okay. I'd be here for her.
That's good.
So confidence, I think.
Yeah.
For me, I think the key word of the day is just being intentional. I've been really intentional since starting Bless. In the very beginning, there's this handout that you were talking about. It's at southview.org/bless if you're looking for it, where you just take a moment to sit down with God. And to me, I just asked him to reveal who he wanted me to focus on in this season as we're starting Bless. Obviously, you incorporate it into your day-to-day life. But for me, I really wanted to be intentional and pick who God wanted me to focus on. And it's so interesting because I wanted to just pick my best friend, But really, God brought people to my mind. I was like, really, God?
You sure
Like,
about that
this
one?
person? Are you sure? And I went with it, and I've been praying for these people. I've sent surprise little gifts to them because we've talked and they're going through hard times. I've checked in a lot more, and being intentional, I've become really close with the people I really wasn't sure about. And it all started because we went through this. I sat down and I asked God, okay, God, who do you want me to pay attention to? He brings people into our lives for a reason, right? And so I think this is a really great way to just have him work through us in a really simple way. It's cool. I recommend it.
Absolutely.
So, nice segue to the last question. How would you recommend people get started? What would you say to somebody who's like, all right, this sounds really neat. It's a new year. I'd like to try something new to kind of jumpstart my faith. What's their next step?
Find a friend and read the book. I think doing it with someone, like I know doing it with our group, has been really helpful because you're not doing it alone. You're not supposed to do it alone.
Yeah.
And just, you can talk it through.
Yeah.
Parts that make you comfortable, parts that are really uncomfortable, and it gives you that accountability. And I think that, like in sports, it's super important, and in life, just getting it done.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, God.
Do it.
I was going to say, I know we have some people online that aren't believers, and I love that. Thank you for watching. And I think that if you're looking for a really easy way to implement this, like one of the steps is go out to eat.
Yeah.
Go eat with somebody. Have a conversation and truly listen to what they're saying.
Yeah.
Don't just let it go in one ear and out the other. Really listen and start building that friendship. And then if Jesus is involved, great. If not, you're having a great conversation and building your relationship together. And hopefully Jesus will plant that seed, and we're praying over that. But that is a really easy way to get started. Plan a lunch date. Let someone be heard. Let someone hear you, and just build that relationship.
That's good.
I know for me, I like learning from books. I don't necessarily like to read, but what I loved about it is it was so simple to follow along. And whether you do that, if you're more visual and want to go watch the sermons, either of those, it's so good to review The content, I know it's been a couple months if you've already seen it. If you haven't seen it, it's something to just get your mind working and thinking about the ways you can implement. And kind of like I answered how the first question, it's very encouraging on what you're already doing and not even being intentional about it. And that's what I loved about the eating part too, that you're already doing that. How can you add more intentionality to it or include other people around you? So it's just recognize what you're already doing and take one step beyond that. Whatever is the best fit for you, that's the easiest way forward. And none of them are complex steps. It's all things that we can easily implement without drastically changing our lives.
Yeah.
You can take that one step no matter what your position is, where you are, who you're around, who you're not around. It's very doable, very, very easy once you go through that content.
That's good. I think the core idea behind the blessed strategy is that God has blessed us. And we don't want to just hold on to that. We want to be a conduit of that blessing because God created us to bless other people. We want to be a blessing. And these are some very practical ways that we can do that. So my challenge to you is if you haven't engaged in this yet, if you haven't watched the sermons or read the book or whatever the best way for you to get that content is, I'd encourage you to do that. But my stronger encouragement is that you begin to execute on it. You begin to do it. I believe that if you begin to execute what we have been talking about, you begin to do the blessed strategy, then you're going to find in 2022, God is going to work in you and through you in a way that you may have never seen before.